Welcome to the Sportlight podcast for parents, coaches, and athletes. The Sportlight refers to the time in an athlete's life when they have increased ability to affect the culture around them and the increased opportunity to learn life's lessons through sports. This podcast aims to help parents and coaches capitalize on their athletes' precious time in the Sportlight. The Sportlight podcast is brought to you by Especially for Athletes program.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sportlight podcast. What's up, Dustin? How you doing today?
Hey, Shad. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to have our conversation today about one of the key principles of Especially for Athletes, which is a principle that we like to call win the hour. And before we hop into this and talk to mental performance coach for the Tampa Bay Rays, Justin Sua, and some of his thoughts on that and productivity and what they teach at a major league level there. I would love it if you just take a second and explain the concept as simply as you can of win the hour and what you've gone around teaching all over.
Well, the win the hour is the first chapter of our book, the Sportlight, and it's there's a reason why it's the first chapter, and that's because whether you're an athlete or not, I mean, just even us as parents and business owners in our lives have not become less busy. They've become more busy. And the ability to prioritize and to make what's most important every day is more critical now than ever. So what we try to do with our athletes is get them to understand this idea of approach your day like your day is a season. And let's say that your season has about 16 games to it, right? That's a typical soccer season or baseball season for your kids, right? Maybe 16 games. We are awake for about 16 hours of the day. We talk about that in the book, that assuming you sleep for about 8 hours, you have about 16 waking hours of the day. And so we say, if you try to win all of those, like you would try to winning all the soccer games, your goal is to go undefeated or to go 16-0. And, that's what we want to stress to people in general, is that our days need to be prioritized and we need to be in the hour that we're in and not let the 8th hour of the day affect the 2nd hour of the day. Just like we wouldn't tell our daughter to worry about her 8th game of the season when she's getting ready to play her 2nd game of the season. That the 8th game will come, just like the 8th hour of the day will come, but win the hour that you're in, be present, right? Be where your feet are, whatever cliche you want to use. We've heard them all, but this idea of being in the moment and winning every hour is critical to becoming elite and becoming your best at something.
Yeah, man. And, this concept, I've been all over. I've taught it so many times. And sometimes as you just talk about it over and over again, it really gets into your heart. And I had an experience as a parent. I've shared it with you, but, where this concept really kind of came to mind and I saw the benefit that it has for an individual. I had a morning that was a lot like probably many of the people listening to this podcast mornings that they've had before, just kids dragging their feet, not getting ready for school, going to be late. I'm pressed to get ready for work. And anyway, we hop in our car and I'm taking my 3 girls to work or to school on my way to work. And it's just one of those mornings, just been horrible. I'm looking in the rear view mirror. All of them have tears in their eyes, because I had to rush them out the door. They weren't quite ready. They didn't look right, in their mind. And I had this concept, of win the hour come to my mind. And I had the thought, and this is kind of as I've heard you teach this and have taught it myself, it's just asking yourself every hour of every day, and really hour becomes just a word for every segment of every day, right? Sure. Just as you transition from one thing to another, what do I need to do to win this moment, this hour, as you were talking about? And I asked myself that question. I thought, I can't send them out of my car without a smile on their face. Like, the way I'm going to win this moment is by getting them out of my car and with a smile on their face. And so I remember I put on Eye of the Tiger, just a classic. And I said, girls, after that morning, we need a pump up song. Like, we need something that's going to pump us up for the day. We need a pump up song right now. So I started putting on Eye of the Tiger. They're like, what is this, Dad? And I'm like, this is the greatest pump up song that's ever been played, and anyway, I start just freaking out and acting like I'm playing the drums. I'm reaching back and like, grabbing their legs and everything. And my daughters were all laughing, getting out of the car. And I was like, you pumped up, or do you need verse 2? They're like, no, we're fine, Dad, we're fine. But that concept, if we would just, it sure has helped me, since it's become a part of my life, just to think in the transition periods between things, or in the moment, like, this isn't going how I want it to go. Yeah. What do I need to do to win this right now? And it's just been super helpful for me to get the most out of my hours every day, as a parent, as a teacher, as a coach. Like, I want to capitalize on this moment. This is what I have right now, not what's coming up, not what was in the past, but right now I have this moment. Let's win it. And that has been like super, super helpful, that concept. So,
well, athletes learn it the heart one way or the other in competition. You let last play affect your next play, and you can find yourself living and playing backwards all game. And we shouldn't play backwards, and we shouldn't live backwards. The first quarter of the game is over, and if we're losing by 10, we can't do anything about that unless we make the next quarter a better one. And so if last hour didn't go well, it didn't go well. We can't fix that, but we can maybe make things better by winning the next hour, winning the next minute of the game or whatever. And we got to be able to, just like you would tell a player in a game, don't worry about, the last play, move on to the next one. I tell, the kids I coach to play the next play. It's one play and clear your head. And life should be that way. It's one moment and then move on to the next one and be all in on the next one.
Yeah. I was talking to Justin Sua, mental performance coach for the Tampa Bay Rays, and he was talking about maybe the hardest battle that we face in those 16 hours. And I've heard you talk about this a lot, and it's that first hour of the day. Oftentimes we start off our season on a losing note because that first hour sometimes is so difficult to win. And he shared this awesome analogy. I want to take a second, just listen to our conversation for a second. Then I'd love to pick your brain about some of the things you've taught on this subject after we listen to Justin. So here's
Perfect.
Justin.
Perfect.
And so winning the hour, one thing we talk about is winning the morning. When you wake up in the morning, what is your plan the first 90 minutes of the morning? And are they on par? Is your morning routine on par with your goals? Are the habits you have in the morning, are they on par with what you want to accomplish in life? And so whether it be meditating or working out or reading, whatever, but that's a perfect time. Like a rocket uses so much energy and power to lift off. What do you do in the morning to lift off so that you could win the second, win the hour, and ultimately win the day? We learn that in physics. We learn that an object in motion tends to stay in motion until it is impacted by another force. And obviously I'm butchering it, but we wake up from the slumber in our warm, comfortable bed. We're stagnant. We're stuck. What's going to be that force that gets you out of bed? Is it going to be your why? Is it going to be your goals, your purpose? And as you get consistent with doing it day after day, it'll just become discipline and habit where you just wake up. And at first you may be thinking, oh, I can't do that. But at first it's going to be unbearable. But if you stick with it, it'll be uncomfortable. But if you stick with it, it's going to be unbreakable. And you're going to create a new habit and have new behaviors. And one thing to your point, what you're saying is essentially what you're saying to go 16-0, you're inviting these youth, you're inviting these parents, you're inviting anyone involved in your program to do what they do on purpose, with purpose, to live a life by design and not by default. Because if you don't plan your day, if you don't plan to go 16-0, the default mechanism is we're a creature. We want the easy way. Chances are, if you're listening to this and you're a teenager, you've asked your teacher, what's the least amount I have to do to get an A? What's the least amount I have to do? Hey, coach, can we do something so we don't have to condition? What can we do to take it? It's like, we want the easy route. We're cutting corners. We're not touching the line. And that's not what elite athletes or humans do. It's embracing the difficult thing. It's leaning into the hard thing, because that's what's going to set you apart, not just set you apart from others, but inch you closer and closer to the best version of yourself.
Yeah, man, I love that. I love that stuff. You know, I've heard you share some very similar stuff about the battle with the alarm clock. Take a second to share your analogy there with the battle of the alarm clock.
Yeah, you know, when we were discussing this and writing about it and teaching it, I started going through my own day, and I believe at the time it was probably a time when we started challenging athletes to track their day. And that's something that I think is healthy for adults as well. You know, for parents listening to this, it's so easy for the day to control us instead of us to control the day. And I think when we're intentional in our day by kind of taking stock of how it went, we find out there's a lot of hours of the day that, golly, we the last 4 hours, I got nothing done. Right? Or the last 4 hours I was busy, but I wasn't productive. I had a million things I was juggling and I didn't do anything great. I just did a lot of mediocre things for the last 4 hours. And so as we were teaching that and asking kids to track that, I did it myself. In the very first hour of the day, I realized the very first action that I take every day, that we all take every day, is a battle against a little device that wants to kick our butt every morning. And it usually does, right? And that's our alarm clock. We're in our bed and we're comfortable and we're asleep, and that thing starts beeping at us or whatever, you know, it playing a song or something, and it spooks us a little bit. And our natural reaction is to want it to go away. We can't reach over and turn it off fast enough, right? And we usually hit the snooze button and try to give ourselves a little bit more time instead of attacking the day. And it dawned on me that the first action of the day, we have a chance to win or lose. And my guess is that most successful people in life, they win that first. They don't sit around and tinker with the snooze button on their alarm clock for the first hour of the day. I just can't imagine the most successful people, name whoever that is, and you know, and that you believe in your life. I don't believe that person is lethargic, getting up and I see that person as somebody who probably gets up and gets going and gets to work. And so, you know, I got in a little bit of trouble when I tested that idea on my 8-year-old son, and I was having a discussion with him on it. My wife got a little bit mad at me when I took a piece of duct tape and put it on the snooze button and wrote the word loser button. And I talked to him about how, hey, you know, losers are get up and hit their snooze button every morning, and that's not you. Get up and get going. And she thought that was a little bit over the top. maybe it was, but the whole point was I wanted him to realize that, you know, you're literally losing time when you push that. If the night before you make a goal to get up at 6 and you don't want to get up at 6, you want to hit your snooze button 2 times and I'll get up at 6:10. Then set your alarm for 6:10 and wake up at 6:10. But whatever goal you set the night before, whether that's to wake up at 6 or at 6:05 or at 6:10, set it. If you need 10 more minutes to sleep, then set your alarm 10 minutes later. But when you set that goal the night before, you decided to wake up at a certain time. And when that time comes, you have to make the decision to give in to the comfortable bed or to tell the day by your first action of it that you are going to live it with intent, right? That you're in charge. And so not only don't hit the snooze button, but then get up and do something. You know, I would challenge parents, tell your kid to wake up, tell your child to wake up and make the first action of the day be something they don't want to do, like make their bed right away. Just immediately do something that you don't really want to do, or drop down and do 20 push-ups just to say, let's go. It's time to get going. It's time to, and have that same mentality we want our son or daughter to take the basketball court with right off the tip, right? Not lethargically working into the game, not striking out the first time up at bat because, it's early. It's my first at bat. No, be ready to hit the first pitch, right? And play defense the first possession. And that's the idea of win the hour.
Yeah, that's awesome. That concept of the lose button instead of the snooze button, a few things that Justin said, kind of reverting back to that. I love how he compared it to a rocket ship. That our day is often like a rocket ship. It takes that immense amount of energy on the launch pad to get that rocket, that million-pound whatever cylinder up into the air and into the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. Then it just takes little bursts. Once you get going, it just takes those little bursts of energy to get that rocket going. But that initial part is sometimes the hardest, getting off the launch pad. Yeah. But it does set a tone for the day. I think we've all experienced it. We've gone through phases of our life and where we give into that lose bar, the first little bit. And one of the things he said, I'd love to talk about for a second, is that what gets you out of bed, that you need something to produce that energy to get out of bed. And he just made this little comment. What is it that gets you out of bed? Is it your why? And then he kind of moves on. But for me, that was a profound thought. I think a lot of people are living their life without a why, without a why I'm getting out of bed. I'd just love to know your thoughts on that, about developing a why as an athlete to win that first hour, to get off that launch pad.
Yeah. Well, you'll in sports, a lot of coaches will purposely have weight training or their early morning, their running, their conditioning be early in the morning. And the idea is to, along the lines of what you just said, you could do it in the afternoon. There's no reason you can't do it later, but to do it in the morning when it's hard teaches you to get up and get going right away. And the why every day is, I hope for an athlete, it's that I want to be the best that I can be. I want to have the best chance I have to be successful. And I only am given a certain amount of hours of the day. And I know that I've got school and I may have work and I have other responsibilities. So if my why is truly to be the best volleyball player that I can be, I don't have a whole lot of time to waste. And if I've got a little bit of time before school, I can spend it tinkering around in my house or with the alarm clock, or I can get up and get going. But everybody's why is different and it changes during life. Our whys are why we get up to go to work is different now that we have a family and it changes. But I hope that everybody's why is to try to be the best versions of themselves. And the best version of ourselves is not rolling around lethargically deciding if we want to get up and attack the day. That we only have this, we don't want to live backwards. And once that hour's gone or that day's gone, it's gone and we don't get it back. And every day is a blessing and every chance to get better and to be around people we love. And for these athletes, I would remind parents to remind them, if they played sports, they know the tremendous opportunity it is to be around teammates, right? To not just be a team member, but to be a teammate, and to think about that word, to be a mate to somebody, a friend to somebody. And that's a tremendous, don't waste one day of that opportunity, and get up and get with your friends and go work out together or run together or study together, but attack the day, live it with purpose and with intent, and develop those habits so that when you become an adult and you need to get up to go to work, or you need to get up to take your kids somewhere, you need to do real world adult things. Hopefully your football coach encouraging you to get up early to go to weights, you learn that lesson, even though you didn't want to, that my why is I want to be the very best that I can be. And that means I need to take advantage of every opportunity that I have and start by winning that first hour of the day.
Yeah. And I want to fast forward all the way to the end of the day, because he made one other comment: to live a life by design and not by default.
Yeah.
And what I have found is I've tried to go 16-0, doing that same process that we've challenged athletes to do, is that 16th hour becomes really important, because as I sit down right before I go to bed and take a look at the next day and say, okay, what do I have going on tomorrow? And what do I have to do to win that, win each hour. And I design my day. I just don't wake up and try to, what moment do I find myself in? Because oftentimes then we find ourselves just doing things that just aren't as important as other things, just by default, just where we end up. And being purposeful and living a life by design. And that 16th hour, I found that often will create my why the next day. If I sit up and say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and this is the first thing I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go here, and I concentrate, especially on those transitions. It may not be 16 in a day, but I like looking at my transitions. Okay, so this is going to be the morning. This is going to be the next thing I do. This is going to be the next thing I do. But if that first hour of the day is not worth getting out of bed for, then I need to change that first hour of the day. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes it's designing that first hour so it's more appealing to me, it's more energizing to me than sitting in my bed. And that 16th hour helps me with my why of the first hour. And he said one other thing, I took notes here, that at first it's unbearable. These things don't come easy. Someone might hear this and think, yeah, I'm going to do that. And, that first morning, it's like daylight savings morning, when you leap an hour ahead and it's just miserable and you're like dragging a little bit. But once you get out and get going, 3 or 4 days into it, you're feeling pretty good. And so at first it's unbearable, then it's uncomfortable. But as we stick with it, it's unbreakable. And as we become unbreakable about putting those first things first in our life and doing the things that are most important, Gandhi said, actions express priorities. So as we design our day and what we're going to do, we can look at that and say, what's important to me? That schedule will tell you what's important to you. And if you look at that and you go, that's not the most important stuff, then maybe we should be doing some different things. And just going through that process of designing our day and then trying to win each hour, that concept has just helped me. It's really helped me get more out of life.
Well, one of my biggest pet peeves, I hate the phrase, and I, like everybody, I use it, but I actually try to address it if I hear somebody close to me say it, or if I say it, I catch myself. And that's I don't have time. Because, we make time for things that are important to us. I've heard my kids say, I don't have time, but they do have time to get on their phones and check social media. And they do have times, at times to play a video game. I may say, I don't have time, to go to the gym or to go work out or to go run, but did I find time to watch a game, or did I find time, to sit around and read a book? I did, but reading the book was more important to me than working out. And it's okay to admit that, but we can't argue with the results if our body gets out of shape. We've read a lot of books, right? Yeah. So it's what's important to us, we make time to do. And that's the whole idea of winning the hour. And if we look at our days, what does that look like? At lunchtime, what is lunch? What's the most important time or thing to do at lunchtime? If you're for everybody, we need to fuel our body. We need energy, right? So we need to make sure that we're eating properly. That's part of winning that hour. But if you're a kid at school, lunchtime is a social time. I don't think that our kids should be having their math book open and studying during lunchtime. I think that that's a time to learn social skills, to listen to your friend, to look for somebody to go talk to just be friendly and have discussions with somebody. That's winning that hour, and what's the most important thing at 6 o'clock for an athlete? It's probably family time at 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock. But with that said, as parents, we need to understand as well, for us and for our children, that part of winning every hour and winning, and therefore hopefully winning the day, is there's a time for relaxation. It's okay for your son to play video games a little bit. if that's how he relaxes. It's okay for maybe we want to watch TV, or we want to, check a game, or we need that time. We need time to relax and recharge a little bit. And that actually should be built into our day. Otherwise, if it's just go, go, go for 16 hours a day, every single day, we're going to find that there's a lull that happens there. Even in a game, there's a halftime, right? There's a halftime where you get oranges and, you refresh. So our days need to have that. And, Justin talked about that. I just feel like this idea of intentionally being aware of what's most important and making those priorities the most important, making sure they remain the most important is absolutely critical to becoming the best, especially when we as adults and our kids have so many things pulling at us and trying to distract us and trying to get our focus elsewhere, that if we're not careful on it, just our cell phones alone, how many times they're notifying us of something. Imagine 20 or 30 years ago having somebody constantly poking at you to check a message that was just sent. That's our phones beeping at us or vibrating on us or whatever, that it's look at me, check me, like this, read that, retweet this, check that email. It's constant. And teaching our kids to be present, and then us as adults checking ourselves and making sure when we're at the dinner table with our son, we shouldn't be reading emails on work. We need to have our eyes up, going back to our motto of eyes up, do the work, look at our son in the eyes. And that's time to be a dad, right? That's time to be a parent. It's not social media time or read email time. It's be with your son or be with your daughter and be 100% focused on that moment. And if we all as adults would do better at that, our kids will get better at it because they're watching us. And I wonder how many of us can honestly say, if we saw us through the eyes of our son or daughter, are we really interested in them as much as we're interested in our own social media or our own work or our own interests? Because sometimes I think when our sons and daughters are wanting to talk to us, sometimes at home, we harp on them a lot to put their phones down and pay attention or stop playing video games. But I think if we looked at us through their eyes, we'd probably be disappointed in how we act oftentimes with those same exact devices because we don't get our eyes up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. And, just a few things maybe to close this up that, after just thinking of this concept for years now and hearing different people teach it. And, that morning is so important. And I don't know about you, Dustin, but I don't think I had the concept of the importance of the morning. Like some of these things we just assume, like we hear these people who've accomplished great things. Then we find out that as a teenager, they used to do what? Wow. No wonder they're so special. Well, and I look back and go, man, I would have done that as a teenager. I never even thought of it. So some of these things are just things we need to teach our kids sometimes too. And so helping them, hey, what's going to get you out of bed and what's your morning routine? And helping them develop a morning routine. How are you going to win that first hour of the day? This is something we talk about. We're really into competing, right? like this is we want people to be nice and everything like that, but you learn a lot by competing. And the day after, our daughters are, as we've talked about before in the previous podcast, but are drill girls, and the day after the state championships, I remember saying to my daughter, some team out there is winning the state championship right now. No one knows it. Like they won't know it till a year from now, but some teams are getting behind and some teams are winning the state championship right now. It's just those lights when they come on, they're going to reveal who was doing the work, when no one else was watching. And so that first hour of the day is a day to win, right? You could get ahead of people in that first hour, and helping them come up with that, helping them think of transitions. When you transition from class to lunch, as you talked about, your priorities should shift. They should change. When you transition back to class, they should shift again. You should organize your life such so that when you're at practice, you're present and your coach has your eyes, your heart, your effort. And then you switch to home, and in that transition, you should again. But I have found there's this funny podcast I listen to because my wife always bugs me about my posture. And so I was like listening to this thing about improving their posture. And go with me on this one. I mean, I know this is a tangent, but the guy actually said every time you walk through a doorway, like have the doorway be a reminder to kind of straighten up, So just take something common, right? So I've been doing that over this last little bit, and it's improving my posture. I think that transition period in our life, whenever we're transitioning, if we'll just ask ourselves, how can I win this next hour? What's going on? What do I have to do to win it? I think the answer becomes apparent, and then we live a life by design and not by default. And I love that. And so this concept, man, I think about this concept as much as I think about any other, and it's had as big of an impact on my life as any other, and something I love just teaching to my kids over and over and over again, because I think it's one of the secrets to a great life, living a life by design.
I agree. And that would be my challenge to the parents and coaches that are listening, is that, make it intentional and live it. Practice it first internally and making it a personal challenge to, first of all, check our days, find where the weaknesses are. Where are we weakest? Maybe we are weaker in the morning. Maybe our weaknesses where we lose are in the afternoon. But just simply give yourself a win or a loss every hour and see at the end of it, count it up and see if you went 14-2. That's probably a pretty good day. But how did you make it? What were the 2 hours? And if you consistently see that the 2 hours I'm losing are at certain times of the day or with certain people or doing certain habits, then that it should be a red flag that I need to change the people I'm with, or I need to change the habits at that time of the day. And then teachers, talk with your children about how do we make priorities, the correct priorities, and how to be 100% focused on them at the time. If parents, if we can all do that a little bit better and focus on that this week and try to live that, I think we'll be more efficient in getting the right things done.
Yeah. And, one difference, we've probably heard and seen t-shirts win the day. As we talked about that concept as we were writing our first book and writing about first things first, and our second book with Win the Hour. And, sometimes life isn't that simple. The highest priority is not always the highest priority, right? That sometimes through those transitions. And I love just breaking that up and seeing, where am I not being as effective in my life? Where can I win it? Where I'm currently losing. If I start winning where I'm currently losing, I'll start getting more out of life. And that's been my experience. So hey, thanks, bro. That was awesome, man. So thank you for joining us on the Sportlight podcast. We encourage you to subscribe and to listen to our other podcasts. If this is the first one you've come upon, go back and listen to our others. But thanks for joining us. Eyes up, do the work.
This has been the Sportlight podcast from Especially for Athletes, sponsored by Coca-Cola. You can learn more about Especially for Athletes by visiting the website at especiallyforathletes.org. You can also learn more about the book, The Sportlight, by Shad Martin and Dustin Smith at especiallyforathletes.org/book.